The Elias Makos Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Third hour of the Elias Makos Show. Thanks for joining us for the ride. We'll be with you live straight through until noon. Now, a few years ago, Saint Denis Street in the Quartier Latin became a summer pedestrian zone. The goal of attracting more people, supporting local businesses, creating a more vibrant public space. And I can remember when that change was made, businesses in the area weren't too keen on it. They were worried what would happen, right, if cars couldn't go on Saint Denis Street. Now, this summer, however, cars are back. City of Montreal, by the way, says this is not a long-term plan for Saint Denis, but there's so much construction in the area on other streets, they made the decision to keep Saint Denis open to cars for this summer. Now, back in May, we spoke with the Quartier Latin's Business Association about that decision. They said they were upset. They were worried that cars on Saint Denis would hurt businesses during this year's busy summer season. Now that the summer season is in full swing, let's try and find out how it has played out. Julien Vaillancourt Laliberté is on the line, Executive Director for the Quartier Latin's Business Association. Julien, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Elias.
So, how has the situation evolved since we last spoke?
Well, I'd say businesses are still quite worried about customers coming back to the street. We've seen fewer customers because the different festivals were not able to be on the street since the street is not closed. And we're talking like Montreal complètement cirque, who has only a small part of the street closed, and they had to find out a new site in the back of the Bibliothèque Archives Nationales du Québec, which makes it a bit further for our merchants. And terraces with cars are not the same than calm terraces with people walking by.
Are you assured by the city that this is just temporary? They have their reasoning because of construction. Does that give you some solace that, hey, this is not a long-term thing? You'll be back to being pedestrianized in the summer sooner than later?
Well, we were assured it was something temporary for 2 years. So 2026, 2027. Because the situation will be the same in terms of closed roads next summer. Though I must insist, Elias, the city has shown good faith in terms of financing. They kept the financing so we could have our street furniture back on the sidewalks, the greening, the signaling, and programming is still back this year. It's the space we don't have, which allowed us to have more festivals. So this year there was only Montreal complètement cirque, as I was saying in a short part. Now they told us that the program would be back in 2028. Well, will it be too late because we will have cut that habit on our customers had to come down without sometimes even knowing what was happening, just because it was a pedestrianization and they could have a calm moment on a terrace.
Do you have numbers on sales, on revenue? Like, do you know for a fact if businesses have been hit hard by cars being back on Saint Denis?
Well, right now it's an assumption based on how many people are back in the area. We've seen a slight change, lower affluence of people on the street. Will it translate to the business numbers? We will know further down the season when we have our first survey at the end of July in terms of perception and revenues. Now, like just like me, the more time you spend on the street, the more money you spend in the shops and restaurants. So if you are just passing by because there's nothing to see, nothing to hear, and there's no festival, the mats are there. Less money you spend on the street. We cross our fingers and we help our businesses go through that sad moment. The city is there also financing the businesses because of the construction in the area. What we're requesting, again, is the same thing as in May. More consultation, more communication, and in advance. This way we can prepare with our merchants. Our merchants have known only since November, and the plans have changed until the month of May. Montreal complètement cirque didn't have their their final site until May. That's not even 60 days before the opening of the festival. That's difficult to plan ahead then.
Yeah, some of the last minuteness of some of these announcements, I can understand how that's not a good way to run businesses or operations. We're with Julien Vaillancourt Laliberté, Executive Director for the Quartier Latin's Business Association. We're talking about Saint Denis Street in particular. This year, Saint Denis is open to cars due to construction on neighboring streets. So, Julien, I actually want to throw another thing at you because there's some talk also this week about plans for pedestrianizing old Montreal, okay? And the city is seemingly tapping the brakes or going back on some of the plans from the previous administration on that front. I wonder if you have a thought or two, now that you've gone through the experience of a pedestrianized Saint Denis Street, if you have a thought or two, because I know I see this debate always in the city. Every time they try and bring in a bike lane, remove parking, or for whatever reason, if they try and remove parking, it's always a debate. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to business owners when the city is thinking about pedestrianization as to whether or not it's a good thing or bad thing for business?
Well, Elias, thank you very much for the question. And it is a good one. A big change like that always brings stress and questions to the merchants. I would tell them, have a solid business model, have a solid product, be ready to reinvent yourself. This is what businesses need to do, especially nowadays that it changes so fast. You need to be flexible. And it's the same thing for a pedestrian street where I think also SDCs like ours, so business improvement districts or association, we need to be there for merchants and also give great advice to the city. You can't close all day, all year a street. You need to keep some moments that it is open for logistics purposes. So yes, people can walk to go and buy a shawarma or can go and buy a glass of wine or can order their glasses, but if the glasses can't get there, if the meat can't get to the restaurant, then we have a problem. So logistics must be thought also, and not just the way people go to the shops. But we can see it with shops like L'Île Noire, a nice pub that's been around for more than 30 years. The owner has always questioned his business model, and to this day, he's having the best year of his life. Is it because the FIFA and the Montreal Canadian? I think it helps a bit. But he's always been refocusing on his business, trying to ask himself questions about the business model. Flexibility is the name of the game, but consultation. We can't go all the way in thinking it's the best thing to do. Put a bike lane, get only pedestrian, more consultation. And the administration we see in place right now has been great for that. They're really more close to the merchants, close to the different neighborhoods also. So it's not only about creating something altogether kumbaya, it's about creating the great thing and the thing that will make the most happy.
Well, we'll leave it on that note, and I do think it's very interesting, right, for you to highlight a business like that pub that this year of all years is experiencing, record amounts of business, right? So in any environment you can succeed, pedestrians or not. Julien, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you very much, and we'll be waiting for you for an ice cream or a cold beer.
Awesome. Great. I'll be there. Julien Vaillancourt Laliberté is Executive Director of the Quartier Latin's Business Association. Let's head over.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away. The Elias Makos Show. News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
Welcome back to the Elias Makos Show. Now, running a small business, never easy, but imagine being robbed or vandalized, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a single year. That's the reality for one Montreal cafe owner who says the repeated incidents have left her frustrated, exhausted, questioning whether enough's being done to protect small businesses. Let's find out more and head over to Claudia Gamboa, owner of Oh My Dear Cafe. Claudia, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
First things first, let me just commend you here. You know, if I search your cafe on Google, I do a search for Oh My Dear Cafe and find your spot on Pine, pretty close to Saint Laurent. You're a 4.8 on Google with over 600 reviews. You're crushing it. The clients, the community has spoken. You do good work. I commend you for that. What should our listeners know about your cafe? Describe the vibe, your place in the community.
Okay, so I'm a Colombian, so I'm trying to bring some warmth to the community, and during the summer, we specialize in tropical fruit gelatos, and during the all year round, we also bring some specialities from Colombia, so buñuelos, empanadas, and little stuff like that.
How long you been there on Pine Avenue? How long you been in business?
Well, it has been weird thing because I opened in 2019, so previous COVID, and then we have to close in 2022. Not because COVID, I survived COVID happily, thanks to everyone, actually thanks to the community and the government. But then I had to close in 2022 because of construction. But seriously, the coffee became like a part of me, so I reopened again in 2024.
2024.
So in this new location it's going to be almost 3 years.
So, you know, like as a business owner, you've been through it all, right? You've got pandemic stuff, you've got construction stuff, but now we're talking about, you know, theft and vandalism and, you know, the stuff that could frustrate anyone. Why don't you tell me about that side of things? When did things start to get bad on that front?
Well, actually, it's very funny because so I opened in 19 and I closed in 2022. And in those lapse of almost three years, I just got robbed one time that it was the peak of COVID. Mm-hmm. But after that, everything was running okay until last year. So it's just like a spike, like 3 times in less than 1 year. It's like something that is concerning me. And not just me. It's not just I'm not just speaking out for my coffee. It's like I started to see my neighbor small businesses that they are also facing the same challenges.
What do you think is happening here? Why do you think that is going on right now, and you and your fellow businesses are being repeatedly targeted?
I think that it's I don't want to blame someone, but I think it's like a few things that they are putting together. So one, I think, is that the police officer, like the police team, they don't have enough resources to have a team specialized in this growing problem. And the other that I have seen recently is the quantity of people that they don't have home. You know, like the drug addicts and the homeless. They are the itinerant. I think there is a problem that is growing. I know that the administration is trying to deal with that, but we need this they need to address this in a faster way.
And, you know, Claudia, we're with Claudia Gamboa, the owner of Oh My Dear Cafe. She's telling us about a spate of robberies and vandalism that's happened to her cafe over the last year. Claudia, at one point, you said enough's enough about a week ago, where you publish on your Instagram, on your cafe's Instagram, a sort of a plea to the mayor, right? It's directed to Mayor Soraya and Montreal authorities is how you start off the plea that you posted on Instagram. What led you there? You know, because you and your fellow businesses, they're going through all of this. There must have been something that said, you know what, I need to start speaking up about this.
Yes, because I believe that we, the small owners, we work hard, you know, like we try to contribute to our community. And I just feeling like the crushing reality that it's not working anymore as it used to be. So it's like I feel defenseless. Like I feel that it's something that we need to address this problem.
How much money has this cost you?
Oh my God. That's another thing. Like, people think that it's so easy to go to the insurance and they will fix the problem, but it's not the reality.
Yeah.
Like, I have to pay some prints to obtain something. So, for example, the first robbery, it was a lot of money, but they just forced the window, so the repair, it wasn't that cost. The second one, it was they smashed a window, and it was around $1,000. That it was the same amount of money that I have to pay it. But now they crushed the entire door, and it's a double door with a specialized window, blah, 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 and it's going to cost me around $2,000.
My God.
So it's not it's just not the fee. It's not just the time. It's not that I have to deal with the insurance, with the company. It's the repairing, replacing, and for a small business, those costs are very significant.
Yeah, and if
we
you
don't have a lot of money, so we also lose that sense of security.
And I imagine if you keep going back to insurance and making claims, your premiums are going to go up. So you don't want to make a claim every single time, right?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, let me ask you, because again, you've developed a community, right? The people who live in the area, they do want to support you. Knowing that about everything you've gone through, what's been the response from the community to what you've been facing? And your post, by the way, on social media, since you've posted that, what's been the response?
Oh my God, it has been so nice and overwhelmed. Like, I have received so much love and support. Like, just my neighbors, they come in and they say, like, hey, we are with you. Don't worry. I'm going to survive this. But it's consuming. It's time, and emotionally it's also challenging, because it's not just the coffee. I have also a personal life that I'm also dealing with a surgery that I just had a few weeks ago. So it's like going to physio, recovering, and also managing this type of thing that it shouldn't be happening.
You know, and I was going to bring it up, right? Because, you know, watching your Instagram video and seeing you on crutches and seeing your leg, and that you just went through a surgery, I said, my goodness, you're going through so much. Do you ever consider, Claudia, to close again? You've done it once before. You ever consider it's time to end the frustration and close your cafe?
So far, no, and I hope that is not going to happen, because seriously, I love so much Montreal. I have been here for 12 years, and this city has bring me so much joy and happess. And that's why I also speaking publicly, because I don't want to lose that beautiful Montreal that inspired me to bring that, to start my coffee. So for now, no, but if I start to, I don't want to this happen now, but if in some point I start to dealing with more violent robbery, that will be an issue, because I'm from Colombia. So it's like I changed from country just to looking for a safety place and more welcoming, that I don't want to deal with that.
Well, that's, that to me, it makes me angry, right? To hear your story of someone who wanted to, who comes to Canada, you want to escape violence, you want to be in a safe country, and you're put to a point where you're facing 3 cases at your cafe in this city. Now listen, Claudia, I noticed one of the last times that this happened, you actually did a raffle, right, to try and raise funds.
Yeah.
This time around, has the Instagram post and the community support taken up the role of the raffle? You've had so much support, or will you have to do other things to sort of fundraise?
Actually, this time I'm so overwhelmed that I'm just going to do the things with the insurance, because I cannot deal another, to put another thing on my plate.
Yeah.
I cannot deal with that.
Well, I can understand. At the end of the day, that's why you have insurance, right? You got to use it at times. Claudia, for our listeners here, Oh My Dear Cafe on Pine, 68 Avenue des Pins. For those, what should we get? Let's say we come and want to see your beautiful smiling face and want to support you. What do we need to get on the menu? What are you proud of?
Oh my God, for sure, ice cream. It's vegan, and we don't use any artificial color or artificial flavor. And it's like I take you on a tour to Latin America.
Amazing. I love it. Okay. Well, Claudia, I hope you get a few more customers thanks to this interview, and keep up the good fight. Stay strong. I certainly see it from your post that you've been through a lot here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
No, thanks to you for the inviting, and I hope that public safety is going to improve.
Claudia Gamboa, owner of Oh My Dear Cafe. When we return on the Elias Makos Show, what if every young Canadian spent a year serving their country? Now, it doesn't have to be military service. Other countries, right? You got to join the military. You got to be in the military for a year. But what if there was some sort of service program, and it could be military, it could be other things, where you would serve this country? Would that be a good thing for Canada's youth, those between 18 and 25? We're going to discuss that next.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Missed something?
Subscribe to the Elias Makos Show podcast to catch up.
Available on iHeartRadio and wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, what if every young Canadian spent a year serving their country? Now, we've talked about this before. We even thought about mandatory military service in this country. But what if those 18 to 25 spent a year serving their country in some way? We're going to talk about a really interesting proposal on that subject next.
When news breaks close to home,
there has been a shooting. There is an armed and dangerous suspect at large.
Count on us.
There was an officer that was injured.
Information you can trust.
Police came up on me
when you need it.
And all of a sudden I heard gunshots.
Very much an ongoing story.
The voice of the community. The voice of Montreal. CJAD 800.
You can create a happier, healthier lifestyle for you and your family. Montreal en Santé, in partnership with the MUHC, is Quebec's only bilingual health and wellness magazine, giving you breaking medical news and stories that will help you live a more active, healthy lifestyle. Look for the Montreal Roses on the front cover, our new professional women's soccer team ready to inspire a new generation. You can pick up your free copy of Montreal en Santé magazine at all MUHC hospitals, pharmacies, grocery stores, and health food chains island-wide. Or read us online at montrealensanté.com. Montreal en Santé magazine, your guide to living well.
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Montreal, the everyday and the extraordinary. The Elias Makos Show on CJAD 800.
A growing coalition of former premiers, Indigenous leaders, military officials, and business executives urging the federal government to create a national youth service program for Canadians between the ages of 18 to 25. By the way, an impressive list. It includes Jean Charest, former premier of this province. Proposal would see participants receive basic military-style training before serving in areas such as emergency preparedness, disaster response, climate resilience, community development, other public service initiatives. Let's head over now to Michael Burns, chair of Engage Canada. Michael, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, tell me about this. Tell me about this initiative. I know, we've discussed on this program proposals for like obligatory military service. Is that an offshoot of that discussion? Where'd this come about?
Yeah, listen, I mean, there's been lots said and written about the subject, certainly in Canada over the last number of decades. And, we sort of took it upon ourselves over the last year to say, okay, if this is something the country needs or should consider, what could it look like in the context of Canada? And as we began the research, one of the things that we discovered pretty quickly was that there's more than 60 countries around the world that have some form of national service for the young people. So in some ways, we're kind of playing catch up with this concept. The good news is that we can certainly learn from a number of those countries, both what hasn't worked as well as what is working and how we could adapt that to the Canadian context.
Now, 60 countries sounds impressive. It's the good countries, though. It's 60 of the good ones, right? Sometimes it's like,
large,
look at all.
Yes. I think the ones that we sort of gravitated to were countries like the Baltics and certainly the Nordic countries. Not only do they have long-standing national service programs, but they often share a lot of the same values that we do as Canadians. And, one of the ones that we really did a deep dive on was Finland. And as you know, Finland is in a part of the world that shares a long border with Russia. And so they're on high alert, especially given the circumstances over the last couple of years. So, they've taken it upon themselves to make sure that they have citizens that are prepared to defend and protect their sovereignty.
So what would it look like? Let's say we went forward with such a proposal. How would it work? How do you think it would operate?
Yeah, I mean, first, what we're asking the government for is funding to help us really do the hard work and design the right program for Canada. And so what does that mean? It means, figuring out what that model looks like, testing the demand out there, which we think is going to be significant amongst young people, determine the costs, and obviously consult properly and determine how a Canadian version would be built, scaled responsibly. At a high level, some of the things that we talk about is that it needs to be voluntary. We're not advocating.
I was going to ask you about that, like obligatory or not. This would be voluntary.
It would be voluntary. And listen, there's no question we had our own discussions and there was tension between, is it mandatory, is it voluntary? And the reality is, again, looking at what others have done, just practically speaking, there are 3 million Canadians between the ages of 18 and 25. To be able to stand up a program where you're, absorbing hundreds of thousands of young people in any given year and giving them meaningful work and some of these key priorities that the country has, just really isn't practical. So the reality is you can make it voluntary. I think the demand is going to be there. And we think at scale that we could have upwards of 80,000 young people a year going through this program. If you think about that over a decade, that's almost 1 million young people that would have benefited from a program like this.
Do you think it's needed for a country to have a sort of sense of national pride? It's not lost to me. I'm not the first to say it. Many people have said it over the last little while that Canada has sort of lost, a sort of sense of what it is to be Canadian. Do you think that's one of the offshoot benefits here for a country that maybe sorely needs it?
No question. I think, when we looked at this, the first thing we asked is, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And I think there's kind of 2 challenges that the country's facing. And first and foremost, young Canadians today, too many of them are entering adulthood without a clear pathway to employment, skills, that sense of purpose and belonging. And I think, there is a real purpose deficit in this country. And this is an opportunity to give young Canadians not only the benefits that I just talked about, but the sense that they're part of something bigger than themselves. And then secondly, and I'm sure you've talked about this on your show, we've got some urgent national needs and priorities that we have to address, and you outlined them in your opening remarks. And so I think those things come together, and I think national service is a way to address both of those issues for the country.
That leads me, though, back to what we were just discussing, voluntary versus obligatory. It sort of seems like if you want to deal with those issues, everyone's got to do it. So I wonder if that, that leads you back to that previous debate.
Yeah, again, I go back to, at a high level, it's easy to have that conversation and want to force everybody into the program. The reality is that when you actually start to put together the foundation of the program and how it would look and how you would roll it out, mandatory is quickly taken off the table just because you wouldn't be able to absorb 500,000 or 1 million people at once going through the program. Now, 50 years from now, maybe that's a different conversation. But the reality is that you want to take the most motivated young people that want to go in this program. You want to make it competitive, so it's not easy to get in. And like I said, you look at Finland, they're absorbing about 20% of their 18-year-olds. It's about 20,000. I think if you look at about 20% of our 400,000 young people who are 18, That's 80,000 young people over that 3 million pool of applicants. That's a game changer for the country when you think about the long-term impact that it's going to have on the country.
Wrapping up with Michael Burns here, Chair of Engage Canada, talking about that group's proposal for some sort of Canadian service and looking at ways to involve Canadian youth age 18 to 25. Let me just ask you here, looking at under your proposal, there would be military training completed. Like there'd be a completion of military training before serving in the areas that we outlined: emergency preparedness, climate, community service. So does that mean the military would be involved a bit in administering this? Talk to me about that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, the simple question is, that's why we wanted to do the design work. We want to sit down with lots of different parties who would be part of delivering this program, including the Canadian Armed Forces. The good news, and again, I point to the Nordic countries. They've set up a modified version of basic military training for their national service program. We want to have that conversation with the Canadian Armed Forces and figure out how would this work? How would we intake these young people, and how would we give them the opportunity to go through basic training before, as you say, they choose another stream that they want to go to or go down through the rest of their service.
What do you learn in that military training?
Oh, it could be, how to shoot a rifle, to how to be part of a team, how to, to work under stress, and so on and so forth. So those are the conversations we want to have. And again, I go back to the request to government to fund this study. Those are the types of questions you're raising today are the ones that we want to wrestle to the ground and make sure that whatever program we design is going to work for all those involved and ultimately for the participants going through it and for the betterment of the country.
Well, Michael, you've assembled a strong amount of people here that are pushing for this initiative, and a lot of names that would be familiar to our listeners as well. Michael, we'll leave it there. I want to thank you for coming on, and something that I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be thinking about.
Well, thanks for having me, and we'll keep you posted.
Michael Burns right there, Chair of Engage Canada. When we return on the Elias Makos Show, I'm going to tell you the story of a Quebec Liberal Party candidate, made some comments on a podcast. A week later, it's still causing headaches for the party. We'll talk about TikTok star Farnell Morissette, now Liberal candidate, and that debacle. Let's do...
Canadian women are looking for more out of themselves, their businesses, their elected leaders, and the world around them.
And that's why we're thrilled to introduce the Honest Talk podcast.
I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark. And in this podcast, we interview Canada's most inspiring women.
Entrepreneurs, artists, athletes, politicians, and newsmakers, all at different stages of their journey.
So if you're looking to connect, then we hope you'll join us.
Listen to the Honest Talk podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Time is valuable. Thanks for spending your morning with us. The Elias Makos Show on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
All right, wrapping up the Elias Makos Show with a little bit of block party. Look at that. All right, let's get to some stories this morning that we haven't had time to cover. This is one that did not make the cut during the Big Five at 9:05. We start off the show with the Big Five. We try and get to 5 topics. This morning we got to 4 out of the 5 on the Big Five. This is the one that we left off because, it is something that we had discussed over the previous few days. There's a recent development, though, on that front. So there's a Quebec Liberal Party candidate that is quite high profile. It was a surprise when we found out this person would be running for the Quebec Liberals because they're known predominantly in this province for being a TikTok star. Farnell Morissette, and I call him a TikTok star, is also a lawyer, and he has quite the following on TikTok and other social media platforms. He's done that over the last few years. He's been on this show, in fact, once before, talking about politics, and his TikTok channel is explaining Quebec politics, and he created quite a following for himself over the last few years. Lo and behold, he's now running for the Quebec Liberal Party, right? So that was a pretty big get in the Quebec City area for the Liberals. Now, he was on a podcast about a week ago. It's the Génération Oui podcast, and it's a couple of young separatists, right, that host this podcast, and they speak to various people. So he's on the podcast, And here's what he said on the podcast that caused such a ruckus. He said that he'd be open to considering independence. Again, he's the Quebec Liberal Party, the Federalist Party in Quebec. He said he'd be open to considering independence if Quebec's constitutional demands are not met. And, he says in the context of what's going on with Alberta, that the Constitution is going to be opened up. The provinces are going to demand more powers. And if those, if during those negotiations, Quebec demands are not met, hey, I'd be open to it. Okay. Now, again, he's not saying he's a separatist, but he's saying, hey, you know what? Push comes to shove. Ladies and gentlemen, that has caused a lot of unease in the party. So much so, and again, this is various days. Talked about it on the Big Five twice already. Didn't do it today because this is the third day in the row, but there's a recent development, right? And that we've been hearing that there's some unease in the background amongst other Liberal Party members. But this morning, in the pages of La Presse, a Liberal activist just ran to La Presse, published an op-ed saying, hey, hold on a second. Canadian citizenship, it's not an optional thing in the Liberal Party. It's a defining characteristic. And that independence cannot be used as leverage. So I just want you to think about that, right? Like you think of the CAQ, let's say, and they're a nationalist party. They say they don't want a referendum. They don't want to separate either, right? But you would always think that, hey, if push came to shove, they'd open the door to that. Let me tell you something. Not only have Liberals been at a little bit of unease over these comments, like I'm getting notes from people who would support the Canadian Party of Quebec, sending me notes. You see, there's a Liberal who's not 100% Federalist, right? So this is opening the doors to a whole bunch of criticism. And I wonder if it's fair or not. It's a comment made on a podcast. Of course, the Liberal Party is trying to get Francophones back on their side. You look at the polling, that's their weakness. It's not among Anglophones, not Francophones, among Francophones. So maybe you've got to show a little bit of nationalist muscle, like, hey, Ottawa, knock it off. You got to respect Quebec and its competency. Anyways, doesn't seem like that controversy is going away just yet. We're now on day 3 of that. The other big news item of this morning that I want to spend a little bit more time on is the news out of Air Canada. And they've named the boss over at Scandinavian Airlines, SAS Airlines. The chief of that airline will take over as the Air Canada CEO. His name is Anko van der Werf. I hope I'm saying that right. And apparently he's multilingual. He's from Europe, doesn't just speak English and French, speaks lots of languages. Let's listen to him in both languages now. First things first in English, and what the new CEO is looking forward to.
Air Canada is a leading airline recognized worldwide, an iconic Canadian company, and one of the largest corporate headquarters in Montreal. It is an honor to have been chosen to lead this major carrier, to continue implementing its growth strategy, and to pave the way for an even brighter future. I join Air Canada with great respect for the work accomplished over recent years. The company is now firmly positioned, with a clear strategy, a celebrated brand, and committed teams. And above all, in this industry, it's the people who motivate me. Aviation is a team effort, and it's that collaboration that enables us to deliver a reliable and safe experience to our customers.
There's the new CEO of Air Canada, Anko van der Werf en anglais. Let's hear a little snippet of him as he strutted his French language capabilities.
Je suis également conscient de l'importance de servir les Canadiens dans les 2 langues officielles.
So he's checking the box, and he spoke much more. Actually, Air Canada published the video, the full video in both English and French. So he seems capable and fluently bilingual. We'll check at least that box for the company. Interesting to note, on the French media, there is some consternation about an Air Canada decision for the rest of the summer, where a lot of flights where they used to have a requirement of having at least 2 people on the flight that can speak French, flight attendants that could speak French on the flight. For the rest of the summer, on many routes, they're going down to just 1, a requirement of just 1 person that can speak French. So language controversies about Air Canada not going away anytime soon. And we need to talk about this item on the municipal side of things. On the Montreal front, we have a development on the Hippodrome site. Now, I've been saying this maybe now 2 years. I said, if the city of Montreal doesn't get its act together and doesn't start to develop the Hippodrome site, I say we bring back the horse racing. I think they heard me, and the last thing this administration wants is horse racing back at the Blue Bonnet site, so they're actually going to move ahead. So Côte-des-Neiges NDG this morning, making an announcement, the borough launching the approval process for the construction of over 1,200 rental units. They also plan to incorporate a new municipal sports and recreation center. Ladies and gentlemen, at this stage of my life, now having kids, I never really recognized how important these facilities are. Like having a good library, having a good pool, having a good rec center near you. Never really cared. Now I certainly do. So it's good to see that if Côte-des-Neiges NDG, if they're going to go through with developing the Hippodrome site, they are thinking about the facilities that need to go along with housing. At least at the start, it's the Sports and Rec Center that gets the call. Now, the plan is going to see the City of Montreal invest about $50 million over the next 10 years. It's also going to include an affordable rental housing component, that through an agreement with the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. In a press release this morning, this is how we found out about all this, Stephanie Valenzuela, who's the borough mayor, says that this marks a pivotal step in bringing the Namur Hippodrome District back to life. Now, one thing that I'm going to be keeping my eye out on is how car-friendly this new neighborhood would be. Make no mistake, Projet Montréal was pretty clear. They really wanted to create almost a car-free neighborhood, kind of like Old Montreal, what they want to do there. They wanted a car-free version of a future for the Hippodrome. We'll see where Ensemble Montréal stands on that front. All right, we're going to wrap up the Elias Makos show next.
The newest tracks. Let's go. New music. And the next big thing.
Always on the new music first.
Your first place to hear it all.
'Cause you gon' like it, love it, wanna play it twice.
Playing now.
iHeart New Music. Your digital station for brand new drops, fresh finds, and tomorrow's bangers.
I think we need something new.
Discover iHeart New Music. Always fresh, always first. Stream now on the free iHeartRadio app.
And at the end of the day, a company exists to make money, right? I mean, that's really what it's for. People may disagree with that, but that's the only reason the company exists. And so it's not, I think Mr. Carney is going to have to change the culture rather than the economy.
Kareem Boulos on the Big Five this morning. It was Kareem and Jonathan Kalis on the panel this morning. If you missed it, we talked about Mark Carney and his incredible political moves that he's pulling off, the latest involving the Canadian Senate. We also talked about some distressing economic news for Mark Carney as well. So if you missed it and you want to catch up, head over to the CJAD800.com website. We've got the Big Five available there. Also available on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Search for the Big Five podcast. The Elias Makos show now, we made a big switch behind the scenes, and now we put the next 2 hours of the show, the 10 o'clock hour and the 11 o'clock hour, up in their entirety. So you can catch up to the whole show, which is just fantastic. So make sure you're searching for the Elias Makos Show podcast as well. Maxim Kadot producing this one. Andrew Malik in for Jay Farrar behind the board. Thanks so much, fellas. We'll be back at it on Thursday.
Listen, and you're there for heart-wrenching knockouts.
World's biggest stage
and breathtaking triumph. 2026 FIFA World Cup. The knockout stage. Every match, every moment. Listen on TSN Radio. Join the globe on the road to the July 19th final. 2026 FIFA World Cup. Stream it all live on TSN Radio. Available on iHeartRadio.
You're listening to the Voice of Montreal.
News Talk Radio. CJAD 800.
An iHeartRadio station.
iHeartRadio is throwing it back.
2010s, the decade.
To the days of huge hits and unforgettable anthems. A non-stop stream of the biggest and best.
Drake, Rihanna, Beyonce, Katy, Gaga, The Weeknd,
and more. All your decade-defining favorites, all in one place.
Hi, it's Katy Perry.
Hey, it's Bruno Mars.
This is Kesha.
Find 2010's The Decade on the free iHeartRadio app. Preset the station so it's always one tap away.